Hello, I'm Troy Espenlaub, and I'm here today with my friend Meru McMahon. And today's a first for me. I've never interviewed anyone about a book before. And we're also going to be talking to Meru about a first for her, which is the first time she's ever written a book. Um, Meru, I thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. I've been real interested in your book so far. I feel like I've been there when you've been writing some of these things. And I guess just to start off, would you like to tell me or tell everybody online here a little bit about yourself for those of us who don't know you?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Troy, for agreeing to interview me. I have been getting a lot of questions from my readers, and I thought this will be a fun way to answer their question. So for those who don't know me, my name is Meru Hunter McMahon. I am the author of the book called Currencies of Life, and the book is to help people to lead more fulfilled life, to be debt free inside out, not just uh, financially, but also emotionally.
Well, I think it's a very interesting book, and just interviewing people, I'm a little new to that, so I'll kind of beg the audience to kind of forgive any slip ups or problems I have. But I was going to go ahead and just start asking some questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no problem.
So, why a book? When did you decide that that was something that you wanted to do?
So I have had this idea of writing book for a while, but I just didn't know. I guess when you don't have skill sets to write a book, I just didn't know where to start. But when the COVID hit, when we were all locked down, it just was the perfect timing for me to use that time to good use. So that's where I came across my transformation coach who helped me to kind of like establish and help me get out what I was, thinking to write. Because sometimes we have a lot of ideas in our head, but it's very hard to put together because we don't have that specific experience doing that in the past. So kind of that led me to writing a book because of like, okay, we were locked down, we can't go anywhere, we can't really do much of a business. So that's how it came alive.
I like that. So, doing something constructive with your time. Now, a lot of times when people are doing coaching, my understanding is people will do like a journal, or they'll take notes and they'll kind of do that as the outline on their transformation journey on what they're trying to accomplish. Was that the basis for your book, or were you more, you got through that process and then you sat down and then you started working on the book from there? Because I'll tell you, I remember you telling me you were doing a book, and the next thing you know, there's a book. It was really quick. And how did that kind of come to be?
Yeah, it was actually interesting because I wrote my book using my personal, professional, and cultural experiences. So some aspect of the book was something that I know I'm good at. And some aspect is the areas I struggled with and looked for answers for my own healing. And then, of course, the third aspect is through the writing the book, I realized that it was kind of like, finishing touch of my transformation. Like I felt
Right.
like as I was writing, I was more seeing it in more clarity and putting all the dots together, because when you write in the story format, it just becomes more clear, and then you are confident in what you're writing and what you have to say. And again, like I said, the book is not necessarily about me, but about helping others through my stories.
Well, the part of the book that I really started with and really got to enjoy is I knew a little bit about you and a little bit about your background. You grew up in Kazakhstan, and I remember when I first came to one of your events, the one I was talking about a while ago, where you did a great job telling your personal story. I remember you had food there, and it was like these pimento cheese crackers things. And I came up and I had just had lunch, and you said, "Well, we have this food here," and I said, "No, I'm not hungry. I'm good. I just had lunch." And you told me you said. Well, it may not be the food you like, but it's food. And for a second, I felt like I was back at my mom's dinner table in 1983. And so, that's the cultural difference. So I've worked with people from the Soviet Union before, years ago. And, the cultural difference is very blunt. But, that's also refreshing, because I think that's probably going to lend you being a better writer. You were able to express yourself really well. And, you know, I know when this book starts off, you're talking a lot about growing up in Kazakhstan. And when you first told me this concept, I didn't really get the book at first because I hadn't read it. And to those who think about it, it's all about not just answers that you're putting out there, it's how you arrived in those answers. And you're not saying those answers are all right or all wrong. You're very humble about your book. But tell us a little getting in Kazakhstan. I know there's one story in there about toilet paper and a kindergarten permission slip, and I won't give any more of that away. But what did the early part of your life help with most in this book at contributing to getting started?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you totally basically answering most of the questions, but I feel like the reason I wrote a little bit about where I came from, my background, because most of the time, you know, most people don't care about your specific story. But when you sharing your journey to help others, I felt like I needed to tell people where I came from and how I arrived at some of the steps I created. And and I think, like, you know how you build trust with people when you kind of know a little about them. That's why I kind of talked about a little bit about my childhood, a little bit about like how my professional career grew over the years, and of course, you know, cultural struggles. And I do still have those struggles, but I think when people understand like your background, when I say I am writing my book based on these three areas: personal, professional, and cultural, people need to understand. So it's kind of a having that a little bit of backstory. You know, I didn't write every detail of my life, but I just gave them like a snapshot of different areas of my life. So that way, when the reader is reading, they're connecting to me, as well as I think it's kind of a, I thought it would be fun for people to know that there are other country exist, there are other, you know, cultural differences that, you know, kind of, I thought I'd make it fun by telling different stories. So that's how I arrived of writing different story. And the reason I kind of mentioned about the toilet paper is because, like I said, I wrote it during the COVID, and
Right.
COVID being, there was a big deal that people are buying toilet paper and some people couldn't find it. So it just took me back to those memories, like having those times when I didn't know about like having a toilet paper, or
Right.
when we had the toilet paper, it wasn't that, I call it Charmin quality, right? So
Right.
then at some point when I was living in the United States, I remember my kids complaining, "Oh, this toilet paper is so rough." So I just kind of brought it up as an example of that we all have our own appreciation at different level, right?
Right.
So I thought that kind of like, I thought it was funny, but also just wanted to connect the dots of some people feel like, oh, it's the end of the world, when it's not really end of the world.
Absolutely. I think a lot of it too is just, you know, I mean, when you see an experience through someone else's eyes, and we all have different experiences, we're all not going to experience similar things. We will, but I don't think we're always going to experience everything someone else does. And to kind of be put in that spot and think about that for a minute is really great. And I think, you know, one of the things I took away from the early part of your book also is you talked about this concept of, I think you kind of called them gray spots or gray dots, and a little bit about how, you know, looking back, and I think as we, you know, progress in life, memories become more important to us. But looking back, you talked a little bit about how at certain stages you were either putting out gray spots or stars. Can you explain that a little bit too? Because that was something that really, you know, got me when I was reading the book. I'm like, you know, that's dead on.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to say is like, we all humans have these feelings of like, you know, some days we feel like rock stars, like we are so happy, people are loving us. And then we have areas of our life, even on a daily basis. We have when we are not, we feel not accepted, or we feel somebody hurt our feelings, or those, I call it like, you know, people are either give us stars or they give us gray dots. And
Right.
that kind of like, I was trying to like, I guess in a way, comprehend life for my own sake, like, why is this happening, why do I feel unhappy, and what is this? So like, in search of happiness, I kind of had to make my own conclusion. And that's why I was giving people an example of Like for me, one day I feel like a star, one day I feel like this. And because of our environment, because a lot of things that happens to us, some of it is in a way our fault, but also some of it is we cannot control because it's happening around us. It's happening,
Right.
you know, let's say if we were around our parents, it's happening because of their generational experiences, right? So I just
Absolutely.
wanted to kind of like bring that up in terms of give people a perspective, like how are they going to resonate with it, how are they going to cope with it. Like I said, my goal was to help people to see how I struggled and how I made certain, you know, like examples of how I maybe I would call it how I analyzed it, and then maybe somebody can resonate, say, oh, you know what, and if it helps somebody to switch their perspective and be happy, why not?
Well, I think also what I get out of it too is that when you're working on yourself, you start to become maybe a little more aware of how you have an effect on other people. And, you know, and it seems like, yeah, I'm focusing inward, but I'm also, while I'm focusing inward, I'm looking back on things from the past. And when I'm analyzing, I'm thinking, well, maybe when I was in a stressful situation, I put, you know, my behavior has an effect on someone else. And, you know, that was one of the really good takeaways I got from. And do you notice that now, like while you're working on this transformation, and you talk about in your book how it's there's a maintenance process to this? Are you a little more aware of how, you know, your behavior, positive, negative, or whatever, has an effect on other people?
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I feel like when you are hurting, when you are in your own pain, you don't even see the world. You don't even see the world because you are self-centered. A lot of people become self-centered because it's like, you know, you accidentally hit your arm and your arm hurts, and then you
Right.
kind of like shield yourself. So that's what happens. But as soon as you let go of hurt and, you know, like accept your own thing, it's not easy actually to accept. Like I had hard time with it, but at the same time I had to kind of be honest with myself, like, okay, I did that. And of course I also needed to understand what is it behind, why I did certain things I did, or why I became defensive, for example, even though that
Right.
person not necessarily trying to hurt me. Or so I feel like now I can definitely see because I intentionally pay attention. Like I intentionally catch myself, my feelings hurt, or I intentionally catch myself being sarcastic to someone. So it's
Right.
like when you are aware, I call it conscious living. When you're
Right.
conscious, not like just drifting through life, which was my past. I was drifting through life trying to cope and looking for a better life. I always thought tomorrow when something changes, I'll be happy. Versus
Right.
now, what can I do today to be happy so tomorrow will be better for me, you know? So when you change your perspective, you start seeing things differently. Even the word laugh comes to light differently.
You know, and I think that's why I like the format to where you're using your own stories with the examples, because you know someone else is going to see, okay, this person wrote this book, but what makes them an expert? I don't think it's even so much about an expert as it's about sharing. But there's one thing in the book that I really keyed in on. There's this, you know, when I first saw this book, there's like this juxtaposition of, okay, it's a little bit about feeling better, and then the money part comes in. And can you talk to us a little bit about, you know, and I kind of got the connection, but can you share with us a little bit about how the money part feeds into the other things in the book?
Yeah, so money part fits in because like I told you initially, that part of the book is my strength area, which is finance area, which is like in my business, I help, you know, people to save money and reduce cost and all that. So with observation, what I came to realize, even within my own story, that usually when we have a certain money habits, whether we overspend or oversave or afraid to spend money we have, like whatever the circumstance we are in, it's all tied to our emotional state.
Right.
So like for example, I know somebody who have so much money but afraid to spend because he doesn't want to die poor. Like he's afraid to be under the bridge before he dies. Then there are other people who grow up poor or were restricted to spend money. But now since they are free, they just go spend and live paycheck to paycheck. And then so also cultural. So that's why I brought in money aspect is if we understand why certain areas of money struggles tied to your inner self, then you can relate to it. Then it's not any more issue because you're not just chasing outside, like like something that you don't understand. Like you're not looking inside, you're looking
Right.
outside.
Well, and I think, when I looked at that, when I first started this book, I thought, okay, so is the book going to be more about, okay, how we can manage our money? And if we manage our money well, then the other things will come into balance. And, and that was my immediate thought before I started reading it. But then I kind of had a different thought from it. It's more like, in a way, the money is feeding a void, possibly, whether it's, we're worried about not having enough, or we're trying to chase some kind of pleasure by, spending more of it to get a feel for something we're not having. But ultimately it comes back to, it is a stressor in life. And, I think it's really big that you clued in on that point about, not using the money to fill voids, but also learning how to be responsible. And, a lot of it too is, like you said, you talked about people having things and other people not having them. It becomes a situation to where, it's like, well, I have to do this because everybody else is doing it. And, or this is the way I want to be perceived. Have you seen your views on that kind of evolve as, I mean, obviously you're not, old, but you have children, you have one that's away in college. Have you seen your view on money and things change a little bit as you've gotten, to be a mom and, kind of where you are in life?
Yeah, I think, like I said, most of the time we either have money, but we are so miserable for whatever reason, or we are happy, we like emotionally happy because maybe we were in this safe, happy family who gave us love and all that. But then other side, we struggle with managing money because money is one of the subjects that not taught at school or properly taught at home even, right? So I think, like I said, most of the time we are all different. And like how movie stars, they have so much money but they are struggling, or we hear they are hurting themselves and passing away and stuff like that. So I think those are the kind of like things made me think, well, what is it missing? So it's not just you have to strengthen one area of your life. It is more of it like a connecting dots. Like you connect those dots,
Yeah.
and then you fully understand what is it that hurting you, or why you behave certain way, or why are you defensive, or why you spend money, or why you don't want to spend money. So
Right.
like I said, when you understand, it's kind of like that aha moment. You understand and you can balance it better. That like I said, improves profitability and improves efficiency and all that. Accountability as well, because you know what to be accountable for. You know what's your profit goal is, and you know what to do to be efficient at it. And like I said, when you don't know, it's like if you're bringing money but don't know how to manage properly, you either gonna have more of it or not enough. But if
Right.
you know, like, okay, these are my goals and this is my short term, mid term, long term, whatever that might be for you. So that's kind of why I brought those things together, to help people understand. Because like I said, I was financially secure, and I was even afraid, like, why am I unhappy? Like, why?
Right.
What is bothering me? Like, I shouldn't worry, because some people are like cannot pay their bills. So, and then when I started like researching, getting to the bottom of my issue, I started observing other people and of course chatting with people. And like I said, everything kind of had that pattern of, it's one area is lacking. It's kind of like
Mhm.
I envision this bucket of life, and then if you putting stuff from top, whether it's money or spirituality or you loving yourself, but then you have that hole on the bottom of the bucket where it's, you know, all that effort you're putting from the top is leaking out. So that's where I say, if you connect those dots, then there is no leak, because you know you are more proactive, more of it like preventive maintenance towards your life, right?
Well, would you say part of the problem, you know, because some people feel, you know, really uncomfortable about money, especially if they don't think they're in a good spot, or is it kind of hard to stop and say, hey, I really need to at least take a look at this, because it's kind of like that diet you want to put off until Monday kind of thing? I mean, what is your advice for people that, you know, that may be reading the book, or where do you kind of get started when it comes to money? I mean, day one, let's say tomorrow, I want to make a change. What would you say to do first?
I think for me, what I start with, I actually have a study guide that comes with the book where I lead people. First of all, people need to understand their kind of like that perfect life. What do they want? It's kind of like, what destination you want to go. Do you want to go to Houston, or do you want to go to Los Angeles, you know? So it's like you have that idea. Then based on your perfect life or whatever fulfilled life you desire, then you kind of work your way, okay, kind of like establishing what area you need to strengthen and what area of your own skill sets and experiences you can plug in to get to that destination. And so when you have that picture perfect life that you desire, you know where you're going. You're not just swimming and you don't know where you're going. You're swimming and you see that. You see that house, or you see that car, or whatever that might be for you, right? Because it's interestingly, some people want to live in a tiny home and somebody wants to live in a mansion, right? So it depends on, like I always tell people, number one, you need to know where you're going. Number two, you have to really want that. Not just wish, but want. Because a lot of people will say, oh, you know, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'm busy, or next week. That means those people are not hungry. They are comfortable with the pain. I mean, like I say, at some point, pain becomes chronic. When you have chronic pain, you don't even pay attention. It's like a back pain. You crack it and you move on, right? So people need to realize what they need. Like I can be there for them, but I cannot make them. I cannot make them want that life. I cannot make them, because it's like sometimes I want to help somebody, but I cannot pass my emotions. What state I was and what state I am. All I can say, I talk about in my book, I'm a 2.0 now, because I upgraded myself. And it took a work, the most importantly, it took desire. I was tired of feeling unhappy, and I was tired of not even knowing why I'm unhappy. And that took a toll on my relationships, because when you are not fully yourself, you start taking it out around people around you, and your relationship don't grow because you're always grumpy, or somebody says something that like ticks you off, or whatever that might be. So most of the time then we blame it on other people. I mean, it is normal. It's a normal human being feelings, and it's okay to do that. But if you constantly in that state, you just have to start with yourself. What I can do today, one thing at a time, to go towards, like, what habits I can build towards leading that joyful life or happy life, whatever. Like I said, outcome is based on you. And the funny thing, it's your life, you're unique, you can design, you own it. You can write the ending. You may not be happy with the current state, but it is possible to reach that. And like I said, when you take responsibility for your own mistakes, and when I say taking responsibility for your own mistake, I'm not excusing other people's bad behavior. It's on them. It's on them. Like, I cannot worry about them. So I have to only do what I can improve, and how can I move towards that goal.
You said something I wanted to ask you about. You were talking about kind of the journey there, and you have to decide on what your destination is. Tell me a little bit about the cover of your book. Where did you come up with that idea? And if you could kind of explain that, because I think I really like it.
Yeah. So the whole idea came is I called it Currencies of Life because, like I said, professionally, I'm a consultant, help
Mhm.
businesses and people save money and reduce cost. So that concept came like, oh, it is a currencies of life. So we all spent our money differently, right? So
Right.
today, if we are sick, health is important. Or today, if we fell in love, love is important. Or
Right.
today, if we're having a kid, the kid is important. So our currencies change constantly, even on a daily basis. So when I came with the concept of currencies of life, I envisioned the cycle of life.
Right.
So cycle, you are born and things change, and even happiness change. You're happy, then you're not happy, then you're happy, then you're not happy, or whatever that might be in your life. Then you have life-changing events come in and go out. So we finish school, kind of like the regular life cycle. And throughout that life cycle, these are the things happens and how we as humans can take a control. That's why I talk about learn to invest in good currencies. Meaning, if you are going to feed your negative side of your life, that's what's going to grow. That's what
Mhm.
you're going to get. Return on investment will be a pain if you're going to be concentrating on pain. But if you want return on investment happiness, then you have to concentrate on that part. So like learning to what currencies you're willing to spend. Like, let's say if it's a hurting, healing might be something that positive. Let's put on a higher stock market,
Right.
or if it's something not good, then you just kind of like, this is doesn't matter. Don't put too much effort investing it so you don't lose it in the end.
Well, I think that's great. And I remember you telling me that you weren't the one who wrote that, or you did not. That's one part that you did not do yourself, that someone helped you on drawing that illustration for your book. Who helped you with that?
Yeah, well, that was my daughter. Actually, she's been drawing since she was 6 years old. And when I was started to write my book, I approached her and I said, I really would like for you to help me because it's one of those moments I can brag about you,
Right.
I always tell my kids, as you grow up and live, I have bragging rights for you.
Yeah.
So I think I just kind of told her like, this is what I'm envisioning, but I'm not quite sure because I don't draw very well. And so she kind of gave me some ideas, and I think like we tweaked and it got kind of like, this is the final, kind of a final drawing
Right.
of, like, it's heartbeat, we get heartbeat and we become babies and so on. So that's kind of like, the more she did, like, gave me different options, this was kind of like, oh, this is like simple, and it just, for me, it just translated my view, my vision. And like I said, everybody translates it differently, and that's a fun part because,
Right.
like I say, perspective is different for everyone, and how they translate it is also interesting.
Well, I know when I translated, I know at the end there's a guy that gets married. It looks like, and then they grow old, and then there's his walker, and he's not with the wife anymore, and then there's the grave. And I'm like, was he visiting the wife in the grave, or does it just was this all been from his point of view, and the wife's still there, but this is showing what his next phase is. But it was thought provoking, and I think it ties in well with what you're discussing there. Tell us a little bit about the wealth method. I mean, just briefly. I don't want to take away stuff that's in the book that people can read on their own. But how did you come up with that way to accomplish things?
So, like I said, since I combined my professional experience, so I came up with the concept, like working for, procurement department. Like over the years, I incorporated these steps in my process of like working with clients and all that stuff. And then I said, why not to incorporate that into my life? So I kind of tested it out. Let me figure out. And so in the end of my transformation, when I realized, oh my
Right.
gosh, I feel so happy and I am financially well. And like I said, all these struggling areas come together. And now I can proudly say I worked hard and I achieved my goal, kind of like that, vision I told you. I
Right.
wanted to go there and I worked hard. So the reason I incorporated steps is because, like I said, I didn't write book to just tell my story, but I wanted to give them that map, that the roadmap where, okay, this is how I struggled, and this is what I came to conclusion, and this is the steps I have taken. And what they can do is I'm not saying to copy me or be, be aligned with my belief. What I am saying is take these steps and kind of like put yourself into it and go through it. And in the end, you're going to get to that fulfilled state of, like I say, wealth accelerator, meaning accelerate your wealth, not just financially, but emotionally as well.
And so would you say it's kind of a rinse and repeat process to where, different challenges come up, you're going to go back to that methodology and you're going to do that again and kind of maintain it and kind of have that there? And then tell us a little bit about the workbook that you have there too. I've not got a chance to take a look at that myself, but I see that you do have one.
Yeah, so the workbook, like I said, I mostly aligned, like I asked the questions. Again, the first question is, what is your ideal perfect life? Like if somebody gives you this magic opportunity to have that perfect life, what it would be, write it down, right? And then based on that, all the things that you have to go back to your past, figure out what's hurting you, why people irritate you, or why you always fight with people, or whatever that might be, or why your kids don't listen to you. Like I said, we all have different challenges. So based on that, you kind of like putting together puzzle of, bringing your past, figuring out, clarifying it. And then, so what study guide does is just takes you step by step by step, and like it without overwhelming. Of course, I'm not saying that study guide gonna fix your life, but at least it's that starting point. Where am I gonna go? What I can do at the basic level.
Right. Well, I think it was a nice addition. I look forward to taking a look at it. I go back to one thing too, is you're talking about wealth, and the thing that I'm kind of hearing and that I've seen a little bit is it seems like one thing we all seem to kind of have in common is we're all kind of poor on time. I mean, even those who are doing well financially, and even those who aren't, it seems like no matter what, that it's hard to find time to prioritize things. Is there anything in your book about, how to kind of focus on that and find how to kind of, you can't save time really. I mean, that's a misnomer, but what are your thoughts on that, on time in general and time management?
Yeah, I do definitely talk about that. Actually, that is kind of my main concentration. Why are you busy, right? Why are you busy that you have no time to make yourself happy? Like, what is that so important in your business? And so I bring up some of the example of, like, learn to equate your business to productivity. So for example, I gave them example of, if you know that that cupcake you're eating will take you, let's say, an hour to work out. Sometimes we're like, you know what? I don't want to work out for an hour, so I'm just going to eat half of the cupcake, or I may even decide not to eat it at all. So what I kind of, with that example, I wanted people to understand. So if they are busy doing something, they should be able to equate it. What is it? Is it producing some kind of positivity in their life? A, are they learning skill sets? Or B, are they producing income? Or C, like, what is it? Not just like, sometimes you ask, well, I was busy or busy. They act like such an important, but if you really sit them down and ask them, they haven't gotten anywhere. They haven't learned any skills. They maybe watched some shows that not really adding any value into their lives. So like I said, I'm not saying like I watch junk TV sometimes. I'm not saying don't do it, but being aware. What is it? Like I said, busy, 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 busy. What is it equate to? Are you increasing your income on an annual basis? Well, like I said, maybe you read 10 books that helped you to learn certain skill set. That's in a way different kind of productivity, right? So I think just knowing that busyness, and I think it's funny how if you start equating that, you will automatically remove all the unnecessary busyness, because you are aware. You're not just drifting through it. Let me go to this meeting And, like I said, I understand sometimes we are in the position of certain, tied to certain meanings because of the job, but still, if you like tie it together, it will help you to like eliminate unnecessary busyness.
So would you say though a lot of it too is, I mean, obviously the whole exercise is about self-reflection and being aware and not being afraid to look at some things that you may be doing that may not be, helping to contribute to that wealth. But sometimes don't you think that maybe we're getting trapped into what society as a whole is doing? And it's not just about looking at us and what we're doing as a person, but how much of it is, why am I doing this because my neighbor or somebody else does this, or this is what everybody does and I stop to question it? Are you seeing that in your journey? Did you see any examples of that in your life to where you're like, well, this doesn't bring me pleasure. I don't really like doing it, but everybody does it and I can throw that away and now I have that time to feel something else?
Yeah, I think definitely I kind of brought it up in my book called Giving what is that, comparison of zombie movie. You know how zombies see people and they start chasing them.
Yes.
It's like, I feel like because we live in this, like we are not really present in our life most of the time, we don't even know why we do it. We just do it. Or like example, some show came up and everybody around you watching it, and you need to feel because you want to be included in the conversation talking
Right.
about that. So like I said, I'm not saying don't watch it, but like fully, like I guess if you want to be happy, what is it? Like you just need to align. If whatever you're doing aligns with your goal and you're going to be happy, like if you wake up every day and know your purpose and you're happy, you're not like I said, you're not aggravated, you're not like, you are kind, you're compassionate, you're forgiving. If you are in that state, then that's good. But if you're constantly complaining, I even tell
Mhm.
people, we need to write down how many hours a day we complain and what can we do in that hour. Maybe we can shift that, let's say reading a book, positive book, and
Mhm.
hopefully reduce that. So there are many ways to identify a lot of things. But again, everything goes back to the person. Are they willing
Right.
to be awake? Are they willing to be, go through that growth pain? I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It is painful. It is hard to admit. It is hard to like adopt new skills, but it is all that, again, going back to that destination, that happiness that you want, you deserve.
Well, maybe that's the wealth in it too. Maybe it's the things you were able to overcome, and you have that experience stored when you do have troubles down the road, and it's a feeling of accomplishment. It's not something that's bought. It's something that's earned, and it's something that's uniquely yours. And I think that's a lot about what your book is doing. And I had another question for you. Age, is it age appropriate for, teenagers, or, that kind of thing? Any thoughts on, I mean, I know for adults it's probably applicable to everybody, but is there like a minimum age you would think it would be helpful for? Or is this something, I mean, obviously it's nothing bad, but it's not something for my 6-year-old, but maybe it's something good for my 12-year-old. Any kind of guidance on that?
I think it's probably like more applicable to young adults. Like maybe I would say somewhere around high school, they may not resonate with some of it, but it is a preparation of to that life. So maybe they may not be able to take away a lot of things based on experience, but at least it gives them that opportunity to pay attention, or some of the things that I talk about. Like I said, knowing your purpose. If you can start that a little early, maybe you don't have to struggle till you're like 50 or 45. Maybe you can start a little early. And like I said, I'm not saying life is perfect. It's learning how to balance and knowing all the areas and connecting them as like one picture, which is the picture is your fulfilled life.
Well, I think it's great information, and I think it's something if younger people were to read it in that at that early age group, and it's kind of like I read that book How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it worked for a while, and I kind of got away from it, and then my wife got mad at me and said you need to read this again, sat it out. I read it again, and I got something out of it. So maybe it's something that you get to introduce the concept early, it's there later on. And I think that's one of the great things about a book is, you know, it's not even about how much money you made or anything like that. Is you made something that you are giving to other people, and they're getting something from it. So I guess one of my final questions is, so now you've created this thing. Do you ever feel, you know, you're going to probably get reviews and things, some good, some bad. Do you ever feel kind of like defensive or personal if you get something that, you know, this doesn't seem like a really great review of the book, or they're saying, hey, you're not the person to be telling this kind of thing to me, and they maybe not even read it. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely nobody likes to get negative review as a human being. But I think it is also good. Like, I think it is helping me. Like, if I get anything negative, I usually try to learn from it. Like, hey, it may not align with your belief. So, which means A, they are not ready to receive what I'm saying, or B, they are not ready to do the job, or the C will be something got to them that they became defensive, that they feel the need to hurting. Remember, like I talked about, hurting people, hurt people in my book.
Right.
That's kind of that I have to remind myself, oh, this is what's happening, you know. So yes, at some point, like, I got this, like, let's say 3-star with no comments, and I'm like, why would you leave 3-star with no comments? Now people don't know. Now you, but at the same time, like my husband says, well, it's not a 1-star, so yeah, I guess that's a positive, right? So
Right.
I feel like, you know, and also somebody told me, if you're not getting bad reviews, then you're not growing. So I look at it
True.
that way as well. Like, hey, I can make everyone happy, especially people who like to leave bad comments. And I guess I'll just take it. I mean, I can't change anybody's mind, or,
Well, I think
you know,
you're getting attention on it, and that's good. And I'm not saying that there are a lot out there. I just know, you know, it's kind of like a project that you have, and you know, you know, I know how you know you're very hard on yourself. So, and I know that's part of your journey. You've gotten better at that, but you're kind of a perfectionist, and I just thought I'd throw that out there. I have one more question for you.
yeah.
So, what's next? Do you have plans to do another book or something similar, or is this going to become a thing where you start doing coaching? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about where you think you're going to go with this?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think through this journey, I definitely have ideas of 4 more books. And but I think, like, I'm kind of like phasing them, like, let me see what this book can do. But regarding coaching, I know, like, good thing you mentioned, because a lot of people now assume that I want to be a life coach or whatever, but I don't want to necessarily tie myself to specific title or anything. But I want to be viewed as, I want to motivate people, inspire people, and I want to tell them that your story matters, that your experience matters, and you need to learn, like, how to transform your experience and stories into a happy life. Not just say, oh, this happened to me, and be victim of it, you know.
Right.
So more of it. Yes, I am open. I do actually, you know, work with people who are, you know, willing to change. But like I said, I don't work with people who committed to their whining or miserable life or whatever, because I cannot help them. If they
Well, it's
can
like you
help
said,
themselves,
it's the gray spots, right? They're throwing negativity your way too, and
yeah,
you know, I totally understand that.
yeah.
Well, Meru, I appreciate it. One other question before we go: do you have just one tip for someone that's thinking about writing their own book? What was the biggest challenge, or what would you say to someone is the most important thing if they want to write a book on gardening or whatever it is, whatever their passion is?
Well, I think if anybody have desire to write, well, one thing I can tell, anybody can write a book, especially now, current age, where you can self-publish. And if you don't know how to start, where to start, there are so many helps out there, at least for free, to research it. So, like, one of the examples, like when I had an idea like few years ago, I was searching, and one of them was, do I hire a ghost writer, or do I, you know, write it myself? And so I came to realization through that experience that nobody can tell my story as I can. Like, ghostwriter cannot pass my emotions, my experiences. So with that being said, I feel like everybody needs to like research what fits them, and also that comes a budget. You know, if you do it yourself at maybe at a lower cost, and you also need to like figure out what you're trying to accomplish, like what you want your book to do. Is it help, or is it, you know, like guidance, or what is it? So based on that, they can like figure out. And then the last resort, it's always good to hire somebody to mentor, because they usually help you to see that blind spot that you don't see.
I'm glad you didn't ghostwrite it, and you definitely didn't, because I don't think anybody could have come up with that toilet paper permission slip story from the beginning, if that, unless they lived in where you lived. So the book is called How to Enrich and Boost Your Currencies of Life When You Feel Stuck, Frustrated, and Unfulfilled, by Meru McMahon. And where can we get the book if we want to, for those of us who don't have it already?
Yeah, well, they're available on Amazon, and I also have a link on my website, so it's easier to find. My website is themeruexperience.com, and just go check it out. And like I said, I'm all about, you know, helping people get their fulfilled state that they deserve. And I don't think people deserve to be unhappy and miserable, because we get that one life and we need to live it to the fullest. And especially when we think about time is finite. So we may go earn more money tomorrow, but we cannot bring the time back that we lost. Time is important, so don't waste it. If you are unhappy, find the reason and get being happy.
Well, I appreciate it, Meru, and she won't brag, but I'll tell you, it's already a bestseller in its category. So make sure you take a look at it. And I want to thank you for letting me be a part of this, and looking forward to, if you ever have another book, reading it again. But I really am enjoying the book, and thank you so much.
Thank you for interviewing me.